All right, let's go into worship. Hope your hearts are ready. God, I pray that you would help us to focus in on you, to hear from you, and as we worship, God, you be within all things. In your name, amen. Let's go.
You stood before creation, eternity in your hand, and you spoke the earth into motion, my soul now to stand. You stood before my failure and carried the cross for my shame. My sin weighed upon your shoulders, my soul now to stand. So what could I say? What could I do but offer this heart, oh God, completely to you? So I woke upon salvation, your spirit to declare your promise, my soul now to stand. So what could I say? What could I do but offer this heart, oh God, so what could I say? what could I say? And what could I do? But offer this heart, oh God, completely to you.
God, I give you what I can today. These scattered ashes that I hid away, I lay it all at your feet. From the corners of my deepest shame, the empty places where I've worn your name, show me the love. I say I believe. Oh, help me to lay it down. Oh Lord, I lay it down. Oh, let this be where I die, my Lord, with thee crucified. Be lifted high as my kingdoms fall, once and for all, once and for all. There is victory in my Savior's laws, in the crimson flowing from the cross. Pour over me, pour over me. Yes, oh, let this be where I die, my Lord, with thee crucified. Be lifted high as my kingdoms fall, once and for all, once and for all. Oh Lord, I lay it down. Oh Lord, I lay it down. Help me to lay it down. Oh Lord, I lay it down. Oh, let this be where I die, my Lord, with thee crucified. And be lifted high as my kingdoms fall, once and for all, once and for all, once and for all, once and for all.
Well, welcome back in, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Great worship. So I want to let you guys know, we've got a couple things coming up. One is we're going to do a camp and float. So there's information. We're going to be sending out information in our newsletter about that. But it's a chance for you on a Thursday night, Friday morning to if you want to come camp with us. It's primitive camping. So there's like a porta-john and a fire pit. That's about it. No running water, no electricity, none of that stuff. But it is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do some fun fire pit things and some fun foods and so on. And then in the morning, on Friday morning, if you don't want to do the camping thing, or if you do, then afterwards, what we're going to do after we're done camping, about 10 o'clock, they're going to drive us about 1.5 miles up the river. This is on the Tar River, just outside the Wake Forest area. And we're going to float back down about 1.5 miles down the river on these inner tubes that'll be provided. So it's a cheap event, $20 if you want to do the river rafting, river tubing stuff, and then $30 if you want to do the camping and the river tubing stuff. So make sure you pay attention to the details about that. That's coming up here beginning part of July, and you need to let me know if you're going, so make sure we have spots available and so on. Second thing I want to remind us of is that we are going to be meeting together July 15th as a whole group. We're probably going to do it out at White Deer Park, I believe, because that'll let us kind of have room to spread out, be outside and so on, but it'll also be a place that a lot of us are familiar with, and so we'll be able to maybe play some ultimate frisbee and some other fun things together as a group. So that'll be on July 15th, which is a Wednesday night. We'll meet out at White Deer Park probably around 6:30 or so, and just have fun as a group out there. So we'll kind of start meeting together outside for a few weeks, and then we'll talk about when's the best place and how's the best way to start meeting indoors as well. So all those things are coming up along with some parent meetings and so on. So make sure your parents are paying attention to the newsletter. They should be getting in the email. If not, let me know, and I'll be happy to make sure that gets out to you parents or students. Make sure your parents are getting the email so they have all the details. So we want to transition now. We're in this series about what to do when you don't know what to do. And we're talking about Joseph and the life of Joseph. And so far, there's been some pretty horrific things happen to him. He got betrayed by his family, sold into slavery. But then God rescued him out of there. It was like, yeah! And then he got betrayed by a family and sent back to prison. And it's like, oh. And then, so in today's, this is Genesis chapter 40. And in today's, what ends up happening is 2 people are sent to prison, and they're both kind of well known to Pharaoh, the head of Egypt. He's like their king, but they also kind of worshipped him, so he's even more powerful than a king in some ways. And so these 2 men get sent down, and in the story, Joseph, they have dreams. Joseph interprets the dreams. And one of them is good news that he's going to be restored to his former position. The other is bad news, he's going to get killed. And so Joseph said, hey, I interpreted the dreams, remember me to Pharaoh. And so the one gets rescued, the one that gets killed. And Joseph is left for several more years in prison. And the guy forgets about him. And, I think at some point in this, I would have gotten discouraged, and probably you would have too. At some point in the story, the discouragement would have just been overwhelming. I want to talk for a second about this idea of bad things, because it's one of the questions a lot of people bring up. If God is so good, why do bad things happen? And we're going to kind of study, and it's this very specific thing that I want you to hear very clearly. And it's this idea that pain and negative circumstances can position you to do amazing things for God. But here's what I want to make sure you don't hear. God doesn't cause pain. God doesn't go, hey, you know what that little kid needs? That little kid needs divorce. Let's do that. Woohoo. Oh, yeah, you know what they need? They need their brother or their sister to die. That'd be great. Let's do that. Woohoo. That's not what any true believer would ever think. God doesn't cause pain. But here's what we do know. We do know there is pain. There is suffering, and there is simple things that, like bother us, like some of you having to miss graduation and some of those kind of things, There's suffering like that that's real and it stinks and all those kind of things. But then there's also real suffering where there's somebody you love is in danger of dying or dies, or we know God doesn't cause these things because God loves us. He wants what's best for us. But we do know that this world is broken, and that's what we see. And I think that's an important thing that you need to hear, is that this world is broken. This world is not heaven. And there is a heaven, and God promises us to us. And I think even says that you need to be thinking about heaven is an amazing place, and it should give you hope. But this world's not it. Doesn't mean this world doesn't have good things in it. Doesn't mean great things can't happen in this world. It just means sometimes there's stuff that just doesn't make sense, because none of this was original design. Original design, Garden of Eden, before sin entered the world, was paradise with no loss and no death and no pain. And when sin entered the world, this world broke. And if you want proof that this world is broken, just look around. Look on social media. You see all over the place that this world is truly broken. So I want you to think just for a minute, what are some things in your mind that you have pictured? When I say this world is broken, what are some things that you picture in your head? So think about it for a second. So there's so many things that we could come up with, and everybody's would have a different list, because we all see different spots, different things where it just breaks our heart when this happens. When good people react badly, when bad people are being bad, when situations are out of control, when things we know are wrong keep happening, when this world is broken. But here's the thing. The Bible doesn't say nothing bad will ever happen to you as a believer. It does say God can work everything that happens to you for his good. It doesn't mean what happens to you is good. It means he can use those things in your future to change you, but also change the world. And we see this in the life of Joseph. We see this moment where he ends up in front of Pharaoh because he was in prison, and he continued to trust God. And when he was asked by these two men, the wine pourer and the baker, he was asked by them, hey, so what's going on? You know, like what's my dream about? He said all dreams belong to God. So he still had his faith in God in spite of his circumstances, which were horrific. Betrayed by family and sold into slavery and lied to and sent to prison and forgotten about and all these things. And then he shows up in front of Pharaoh years after the one guy had been rescued, because Pharaoh had a dream. The guy was like, oh no, I forgot Joseph. So Joseph shows up, and he's not bitter. As a matter of fact, he's focused on God still. And when Pharaoh kind of, hey, can you interpret this dream? No, but God can. And he's very focused on God. And it helps him save not only himself, but his family and the entire country of Egypt. Because he stayed focused on God in spite of circumstances. And those circumstances deepened his faith. We've all had some situations in our lives. I've had situations twice with two different kids where I was worried about them living and dying. I've had situations once with Jessica where I was worried. I have situations now in my life where I'm worried about certain things. My brother's going through some stuff right now, and I'm worried. But I also know I have a choice about whether worry pushes me away from God or worry pushes me to God. And I don't know in my current circumstances how God's going to use some of these things for good. But I do know from past circumstances how God used some of my things for good. So Selah was born really early. I think we've talked about this a bunch. And we weren't sure for a while if she was going to live or die. For a little while there, I was worried about Jessica. And so it kind of deepened who I am just because I went through something like that. And at the time, I couldn't have told you there's nothing good that could come out of this. But fast forward a few years, and one of my friends goes through something similar. And I can sit down with him and kind of walk him through, here's some things God talked me through. And then the next thing I know, they're contacting me a few months later, said, hey, so-and-so really needs walking through this. And then this next person, and this next person, and this next person. And at this point, I've walked probably 12 or 13 different parent sets through an early birth or a scary birth or a kid with medical needs at birth, I wouldn't have been able to talk to any of them, even as a pastor, with nearly the depth that I can if I hadn't gone through what I had gone through. Now, I don't think God caused it. I don't think he caused Selah to be born so early. But I do think he used it. I do think he used that experience that the enemy, as a song that we sing so often says, the enemy meant for evil, he turned it for good. And I think that's the important part. Sometimes we just got to realize that when you don't know what to do, when you're in the middle of something, and maybe you're not, maybe right now you're going, this has nothing to do with me. Can I promise you something? There will be a situation where you will go through something and you're not going to be sure what to do. We do what we talked about, where we trust God, we trust, and we just do the next right thing if we know what it is. But we also allow God to use our struggles after we get through them. We allow God to use them for the good of others and ourselves. And that is a beautiful thing. Where he takes a vase that we've smashed on the ground. It looks like it's in 1,000 pieces. And no, he doesn't turn it back into a vase. But maybe he turns it back into a sculpture. Some of my favorite art in this world is repurposed art. Where somebody takes something that was destroyed and now is new again. That's God. This is God with your life. So when you get to those moments when you feel like you're in prison again, when you feel like you're in trouble again, when you feel like the world is pushing against you again, when it feels like nobody is listening, when it feels like good is just gone, do the next right thing in those moments, as Joseph did in interpreting dreams for 2 men. And then trust, even in silence, trust that God can turn it for good someday. Maybe not in the moment. Maybe you just have to realize that this is a brokenness of the world thing right now. But yet God can still use the brokenness of this world to create something beautiful. Let's head into groups.